It's strange how the biggest shifts in your life don't always come with a crash. Sometimes, they arrive with a barely audible click, like the sound of a smart lock disengaging on a Saturday morning. I wasn't supposed to be home that early. That day had started like any other. Quiet, unremarkable. I had planned to spend the morning helping a friend install a new home security system in St. Paul. He canceled last minute, something about his kid's fever spiking overnight. With my morning now open, I decided to swing by the house, thinking I'd surprise Nora and maybe grab brunch. What I walked into was not brunch energy. I stepped inside and immediately sensed something off. It's hard to explain. There was no crash, no chaos, no stranger running out the back door. Just silence, a kind of stillness that doesn't belong in a lived-in home. You know how your body knows when you've walked into a room too late? Like you've just missed a conversation you weren't supposed to hear? That's what it felt like. The first thing that caught my eye was the trash can under the sink. I know, weird place to start, but we don't usually generate much trash in the mornings, and yet the bin was nearly full. I pushed it down to make space and saw something that didn't belong. A crumpled paper bag and receipt with a bright teal logo I recognized immediately. Camberley Hotel, North Loop. A boutique place. Small lobby. Scandinavian wood finishes. Trendy but discreet. I unfolded the receipt. Day use pass, Camberley Hotel. Check-in, 10:13 a.m. Check-out, 3:45 p.m. Room type, executive corner, day use only. Guest, Nora M. Partial name, paid. Amex, last four, 4,218. I stood there, staring at it like it might rewrite itself if I blinked hard enough. This wasn't some vague evidence, not a coincidence, not a loose thread. It was a brick through the windshield. Nora had reserved a room that morning, stayed less than 5 hours, and tossed the receipt away like it was a gum wrapper. What kind of errand ends in a day-use room? Still stunned, I walked over to the foyer table and checked the lock logs. Nora and I both had permanent codes for our smart lock, but a third code, a one-time access string, had been activated and used 41 minutes earlier. Just one entry. No exit logged. Temporary. Disposable. Like whoever had entered didn't need to come back. I felt a slow, sickening churn in my stomach. Then I noticed the coffee cups. 2 of them. Reusable Camberley Cafe thermoses sitting right on the marble countertop. One had lipstick on the rim. Neither were ours. Still warm. My eyes drifted toward the dining area. Draped casually across the back of one of the chairs was a man's navy jacket. Definitely not mine. Too slim in the shoulders, too European in cut. Wool blend. Expensive. Inside, I found a label stitched in the lining, L.P. Logan Pierce. I didn't know anyone named Logan Pierce. I didn't know what he was doing in my home. I took a breath. Then another. My ears were ringing. I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, but I'm also not stupid. My wife and a man I didn't know had shared a hotel room and a coffee, and now his jacket was here and he wasn't. It doesn't take a genius to put that puzzle together. But I waited. I didn't call. I didn't yell. I didn't even text her. I just waited. And at 11:56 a.m., I heard the garage door open. Nora stepped inside like nothing had happened. Gym bag slung over her shoulder, yoga mat tucked under her arm, earbuds still in. She looked flushed, like she'd just finished a workout, which would have made perfect sense, if it wasn't for the evidence I was already standing in. "Oh," she said, pausing. "Didn't think you'd be home this early." She didn't look shocked. Not really. Her eyes flicked around the room, first to the countertop, then to me, then to the jacket. Barely a beat of hesitation. "Cancelled plans," I said flatly. She forced a smile and made her way to the fridge. Studio's AC was out. Hot yoga would have been actual hell, so I went running instead. Along the river. Almost died in the humidity. She opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, avoiding eye contact like it was radioactive. I didn't move. "You go for a run," I repeated. "In the North Loop?" She froze mid-sip, the cap halfway twisted. "What?" she asked, her voice pitched just high enough. I held up the receipt. You dropped this in the trash. You must have been in a real rush, Nora. Her eyes narrowed. You went through the trash? I took it out like I always do. The receipt was on top. She crossed her arms, her tone sharpening. So now you're tracking receipts? I'm connecting dots, I said calmly. Like the guest code that opened our front door less than an hour ago. Like the still warm coffee cups. Like that jacket over there that definitely doesn't belong to me. She stepped back slightly, adjusting her ponytail. Jake, she said, her voice dropping an octave. Do you hear yourself right now? Do you? You sound like a lunatic, she continued. Every time something isn't exactly where you expect it, you build a conspiracy. Maybe I stopped for coffee. Maybe someone came by to drop something off. Maybe, God forbid, I have friends that don't revolve around your schedule. She was spiraling now, not scared, not contrite, defensive. And then she said it. This is your last warning, Jake. I'm done walking on eggshells because you can't trust me. Just like that. No denial. No attempt to explain the very real evidence in plain sight. Just a counterattack like her behavior was some natural consequence of my paranoia. I didn't reply. There wasn't a point anymore. When someone's lying, you expect them to be sloppy, to stutter, to slip. But this was something else. Nora wasn't tripping over lies. She had rehearsed this. She had her script memorized and her lines locked in. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't the first time she'd done this. It was just the first time she got caught. I turned away, walked upstairs, and started packing. No argument. No second chances. I stuffed a duffel with enough clothes to last me a week and grabbed my work laptop. I sent Evan a text asking if I could crash. He replied in under a minute. Always. No questions. As I zipped the bag, I felt something strange under the surface. Not rage. Not devastation. Just clarity. Nora didn't try to stop me when I left. She didn't ask where I was going or when I'd be back. She just stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, like she was waiting for the next scene in her play to begin. Maybe she thought I'd be back after I cooled down. She didn't know that my definition of cooling down was reorganizing the last 8 months of our lives in my mind, rewinding every skipped beat, every missed call, every last-minute plan change and conveniently timed business trip. She didn't know that I had just stepped into the one thing she hadn't accounted for. Silence. And in silence, I start noticing everything. The first hour after I left the house, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even speak. I just drove. Windows up. Phone face down. Mind running like a broken reel. Minneapolis blurred past me in shades of gray and rust. I passed familiar blocks. The bakery where Nora and I used to get pastries on Sundays. The yoga studio she swore by but hadn't checked into in months. The co-op where she once cried in the parking lot after a stressful week. So many places tied to her. To us. But now they just felt like ghosted-out coordinates on a map I didn't recognize anymore. By the time I reached Evans, I felt like I'd just driven through a lifetime. He opened the door wearing his usual half-laundry, half-gym getup. One sock, no shirt, phone in hand. You okay? Was all he said. I didn't answer. Just walked in and dropped my bag by the couch. That was enough for him. He handed me a beer, muted the TV, and went back to whatever he was doing. No questions. That's the thing about brothers, they know when to talk and when to shut the hell up. But sitting on that couch, staring at nothing in particular, the mental reel started playing. Slowly at first, then faster. Frame by frame, a sequence of moments I had brushed off, defended, or forced myself to forget. It started last fall. That was the first time I noticed her phone habits shifting. Nora had always been a little glued to her screen, Instagram, Pinterest pretending to be work. But suddenly her phone was always face down, on silent. Notifications weren't working, she said. And yet every time she walked into the bathroom, the screen would light up like a slot machine. Just work stuff, she told me. People pinging me about vendor deadlines. It's been a mess lately. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But my gut had already started whispering. Around that same time, she started going to a new yoga studio. Swore by it. Called it her sanctuary. problem was, she kept forgetting to log in to our shared health tracker. Even stranger, she started racking up night parking citations near downtown, nowhere near the yoga studio she claimed to be visiting. I brought it up once. Why's your car getting tagged at 10 p.m. near 3rd and Washington if your class ends at 8 on Lyndale? She blinked, then laughed. You're seriously tracking my parking tickets now? Turned into a joke. She turned it into a joke. Detective Jake, she called me. Should I start sending you hourly updates? Want me to wear a GPS anklet? We both laughed. I let it go, but I didn't forget. Then came the business trips. Nora worked in vendor strategy, marketing, procurement, partnerships. There were conferences, pitch meetings, cross-functional alignments, all the vague corporate speak that makes being gone 2 nights a week sound necessary. But things stopped aligning. She went to Chicago in April, sent me 3 pictures from her hotel room, claiming she was exhausted and skipping the group dinner. That same night, one of her co-workers posted a boomerang on Instagram, a rooftop bar with the caption "Friday Vibes Cityscape at Dusk." And there she was in the background, smiling across the table, drink in hand, laughing like she didn't just text me that she was crashing early. The kicker? She was wearing a different outfit than the one in her hotel photos. Same night, different version of herself. I remember staring at my phone and thinking, maybe it's old footage. Maybe she just changed before dinner. Maybe, but I never finished that thought, because it was easier not to. Another time I found a hair tie in her car. Not hers, different color, different scent. I asked. She said it belonged to her coworker Marla, who'd borrowed the car once after a client meeting. I shrugged. Made sense. Except I ran into Marla at a party a month later. She doesn't even live in the city anymore. That's when I stopped asking questions. Instead, I started collecting them. Little details, inconsistencies, mismatched stories, photos that didn't line up with timestamps. Her gym bag full of clean clothes at the end of the day. The scent of a men's deodorant lingering in the guest bathroom. A second email account under her maiden name that she claimed she used only for old newsletters. But that had new password reset confirmations showing up in her spam folder. Each one on its own. Plausible. Together, a chorus screaming at me. Then came the cloud account. We'd once shared access to a joint folder through her old cloud service. Back when we were planning our trip to Banff. One afternoon, while digging through my own backups for an old tax file, I noticed a synced folder still connected to her old drive. I opened it out of curiosity, figuring I'd find PDFs of park maps or camping gear lists. Instead, I found a new subfolder named Events. Inside were pictures. Not vacation pictures. Not work events. Hotel rooms. Concert selfies. Candid sh*ts in restaurants I didn't recognize. And one video, 15 seconds long, of her standing in the lobby of a boutique hotel, smiling into the camera, twirling her hair, then turning it to face someone behind the lens. His voice, "You look incredible." Her laugh, "We'll be late." She kisses the camera before the clip ends. That video wasn't meant for me. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen, replaying it again and again. That hotel lobby wasn't new to me. It was the same Camberley Hotel from the receipt in our trash. Same lobby, same laugh, same man holding the camera just off frame. Logan Pierce. I found his name buried in one of her exported receipts. A note in a shared Lyft ride. His initials signed into the app under split fare. From there, I found a trail. Venmo payments, Yelp reviews tagged together, business cards scanned into a folder she had forgotten to scrub. He worked at a nearby co-working space. Marketing specialist. Freelance contractor. Cross-functional brand synergy. Whatever that meant. He was everywhere Nora claimed she wasn't. The crazy part? She never even tried to hide it well. Maybe she thought I'd never look. Maybe she thought I'd believe her over my own eyes. Maybe I'd done such a good job convincing her I trusted her. She never thought I'd pull the thread. But I did. And now the whole thing was unraveling. I sat in Evan's guest room that night, staring at my laptop, surrounded by papers, timelines, **ts, and receipts. all fanned out on the bed like a detective board in a bad crime drama. Except this wasn't fiction. And I wasn't the detective. I was the idiot husband who thought love made you bulletproof. I laid it all out in order: the phone habits, the yoga lies, the photos, the cloud backups, the guest codes, the receipts, the video. All of it. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just organized. The next morning, I bought a second external drive. Then a third. And I started backing everything up. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't planning confrontation. But I was done pretending I didn't see it. And for the first time in months, I felt something sharp and unfamiliar cutting through the fog. Clarity. There's a difference between suspicion and proof. Suspicion keeps you awake at night, imagining 100 versions of the truth. Proof walks into the room, sits across from you, and says, "This is exactly what happened. No more pretending." I didn't want to be the guy digging through backups and receipts. But once I started, I couldn't stop. My life had quietly split into two timelines. The one I was told to believe and the one the data was showing me. And the data didn't lie. The old laptop was the key. Nora had stopped using it months ago, claiming it was too slow and heavy. She upgraded to one of those ultralight models she carried everywhere. "Perfect for work," she said. The old MacBook had been gathering dust in the hallway closet, next to a stack of photo albums and dead charging cables. I had almost forgotten it was there. I pulled it out late one night at Evan's place, cracked it open and waited. Took 6 minutes to boot. 6 minutes is long enough to wonder if you're crazy. I wasn't. The first thing I did was disable the Wi-Fi. I didn't want it syncing or auto-deleting anything tied to her newer devices. Then I opened the photo app. Crashed twice before finally loading. There were thousands of photos. Most were innocent meals, product mock-ups, Pinterest **TS of home decor I never got around to installing. But the deeper I went, the more fractured the story became. I sorted by location. A cluster of photos caught my eye, all tagged in downtown Minneapolis, not far from the Camberley Hotel. I selected them, and one by one they opened. Nora sitting on a hotel windowsill in a silk robe, holding a glass of wine. Nora in the mirror of what looked like a hotel bathroom, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. A room service cart. 2 plates. 2 forks. Then came the mirror selfie, her phone partially covering her face. But in the background, reflected in the glass of a black TV screen, was the faint outline of a man standing behind her, shirtless, holding her waist. He was tall, slim, slightly hunched as he leaned in. I couldn't see his face, but I didn't need to. The metadata showed the photos were all taken within a 3-hour window. Saturday afternoon. 3 weeks ago. The same day Nora told me she was meeting Marla for a networking brunch. I checked the email app next. It had been logged out, but she hadn't cleared the cache. A few keyword searches later, Camberley, Logan, retreat. I found fragments of autosave drafts and deleted items that hadn't been properly purged. There were calendar invites, reservation confirmations, mobile boarding passes. Some from her work account, some from a personal email I hadn't seen before, the one tied to her maiden name. One message stood out. Friday's check-in is confirmed. Logan is bringing the slides, and we've got the suite until Sunday morning. Same plan as last time, back stairwell, no lobby check-in, digital keys only. You bring the charm, I'll bring the whiskey. It had been forwarded from Logan's email. She replied with a winking emoji and a note that made my stomach twist. Don't forget the playlist. I still owe you a second dance from last time. I stared at the screen for a long time. I felt something break. Not loudly, but quietly, like a hairline fracture in glass spreading just beneath the surface. No sound. Just the knowledge that things would never be whole again. Back in the Photos app, I dug deeper into the cloud backups. I hadn't realized how many of her apps were still syncing to the old device, location tags, payment receipts, **TS, even exported text threads. The syncs weren't complete, but fragments were enough. In one folder, I found digital tickets for a concert at the Armory, a show we had once planned to attend together, back when things still felt simple. But that night, She told me she was going to a coworker's birthday dinner instead. Sent me a photo from a steakhouse. Texted that they were splitting the bill and might go dancing after. She'd crash at Marla's to avoid the Uber search. But now, staring at the tickets, I noticed something else. A seating chart with 2 seats booked side by side. Names listed under hers and Logan's initials. A **T of a text thread confirmed it. Logan, we're gonna be late if you don't get here in 10. The opener already started. Nora, tell them to slow down, I'm wearing heels. Also, I hate you for dragging me to this, but I'll love you for it later. The timestamp? 20 minutes after she had texted me from the steakhouse. She was nowhere near a birthday dinner. In another folder titled Shared, there were 2 voice memos. I almost didn't play them, but I had to know. The first was audio from what sounded like a hotel room. The rustle of sheets, muted laughter, her voice telling someone to quit stealing the blankets. Then a man's voice, soft but unmistakably his. Maybe I wouldn't have to if you didn't look so good wrapped up in them. Then came a whisper. Your trouble, Nora Miller. The second memo was a recording of Nora practicing a presentation. Her voice measured, businesslike. But at the end, you could hear Logan's voice chiming in again. You're a K***lur. Total boss. Just don't forget to come back to bed after you close that deal. I shut the laptop. I couldn't listen to any more. It wasn't just that she had cheated, it was the casual nature of it. The way their messages dripped with ease. The way she compartmentalized it all so seamlessly. Like this wasn't a betrayal but a calendar block. A recurring event. A part of her week she scheduled like Pilates or a facial. I thought of the nights she came home tired, the days she said she needed space, the way she'd smile while I rubbed her shoulders, probably still smelling of the hotel soap she hadn't washed off yet. I thought of all the times I had doubted myself, the quiet mornings when I stared at my coffee, trying to shake off that feeling that something was wrong, and how often I told myself, you're being paranoid. Don't become that guy. But I was never paranoid. I was just paying attention. Now, with the evidence sitting in front of me, I realized how much of myself I had given away trying to preserve something she had already thrown out. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger would come later with lawyers and property divisions and social fallout. But in that moment, I felt something colder. Distance. Like I was watching the last year of my life from across the room, unable to stop it, unable to rewind. And somewhere underneath that distance was a quieter realization that I wasn't going to get closure from her. I wasn't going to get some tearful confession or a heartfelt apology. Nora wasn't going to fall apart at my feet and beg for forgiveness. No, she was going to keep living the version of her life she had chosen. And now it was time I started living mine. The difference between anger and resolve is time. Anger is loud. It wants to explode, to confront, to scream in the middle of the night. But resolve is quiet. It waits. It sharpens. By the time the shock faded, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to barge into her office or text Logan some righteous monologue. I'd seen too many stories where people made the mistake of confronting too early. They burst in with accusations and walked out empty-handed while their partners erased the evidence and rewrote the narrative. I wasn't making that mistake. First, I made copies. The laptop had already synced a lot of data, but I knew the cloud could change at any moment. One accidental sign-in and Nora could revoke access, change passwords, or delete files. So I pulled everything, photos, voice memos, receipts, message caches, and dumped them onto an external hard drive. Then I created a duplicate, and another. I labeled each drive with a fake name, Q1_finance, trip_slides, wedding_2020. One stayed with me, one I left in a fireproof safe at Evans, and one I uploaded to a secure cloud archive under a dummy Gmail account I created that morning. Then came the timeline. Every piece of evidence I had, every receipt, photo, digital timestamp, I dropped into a spreadsheet. Dates, locations, file sources, GPS metadata. I built it like a forensic map of our marriage unraveling. Camberley Hotel, the Armory concert, Chicago business trip, Lyft drop-offs. Everything had a row. Everything had a note. The pattern was unmistakable. Not just the infidelity, but the level of coordination. This wasn't two people caught in a weak moment. This was routine, recurring, methodical. They had a system. And now, so did I. Next, I contacted a lawyer. A friend of mine from college, Clara, worked in family law. I texted her, asking if we could meet privately. No details in writing, just a time and place. We met at a small cafe in Uptown, one I knew Nora never visited. Clara listened carefully, sipping her coffee in silence as I laid out the facts. I showed her the spreadsheet, the printed images, the email exports, the hotel confirmations. When I finished, she nodded once. "This is more than enough to establish cause," she said. "You've built a case most people only wish they had before divorce proceedings. Physical, digital, financial, this isn't hearsay. It's documentation. What's the next step? That depends on what outcome you want. Are you trying to catch her off guard? Gain leverage in negotiations? Protect your assets, or something else?" "All of the above. Then you'll want to freeze access. Accounts, cards, shared subscriptions, anything she could use to sabotage you or drain joint resources. And if there's any overlap between her job and his contracts, vendor relationships, that's another legal route entirely." That gave me pause. I hadn't even thought about the professional angle. Nora worked in procurement strategy. Logan was a freelancer in marketing. If she had approved him as a vendor directly or indirectly, while in a relationship with him, that was a clear breach of ethics. Possibly even policy. Clara continued, "You'll want to submit a compliance inquiry. Quietly. Let her employer do the digging." That night, I did just that. I drafted an anonymous inquiry to her company's compliance office, flagging potential conflict of interest involving Nora Miller and Logan Pierce. I included exact dates of travel, client names, and **TS of receipts where business and personal crossed wires. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand. I simply asked if anyone had reviewed the procurement process for vendors approved during a specific 3-month window. It was surgical. No emotion. And then, just as I was beginning to feel one step ahead, things turned. It started with a message. A number I didn't recognize sent me a text at 2:08 a.m. "You don't know what you're doing. Stop digging. Walk away while you still can." That was it. No name, no threats, just that quiet menace that makes your skin crawl. At first, I thought it was a prank. But two things stood out. One, the number was from a private VoIP service, untraceable without subpoena. And two, I hadn't told anyone about the compliance report. Not even Evan. Not Clara. Which meant someone knew what I was doing. Someone close to Nora. Or to Logan. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned on two-factor authentication across every account I owned. Bank, email, cloud storage, even Spotify. I reset passwords, installed a fresh antivirus program, and backed up every file I had again. This time to a USB hidden in the lining of my duffel bag. It wasn't paranoia. It was insurance. Then came the second incident. Evan called me in the middle of the workday. "Hey," he said, voice tight. "Were you storing something in my garage?" "Yeah, that file box, with old tax stuff." "Why?" He paused. "Someone tried to break in." "What?" "This morning. Back doors got pry marks. Nothing else touched. Just the cabinet where you put the box. My landlord already called it in." I drove over immediately. Sure enough, the cabinet had been rifled through. Sloppy job. The file box had been pulled out and dropped, its contents scattered on the concrete. Most of it was harmless, property records, old statements, but tucked in the side pocket had been a printed folder labeled M Audit, Travel Logs. Gone. The attacker didn't take electronics, cash, or tools. Just that one folder. That told me everything I needed to know. Nora, or someone acting on her behalf, wasn't trying to win an argument. She was trying to erase the past, destroy the timeline before it could be used against her. She wasn't innocent. She was scared, and scared people make mistakes. That night, I filed a motion with Clara's help to freeze Nora's access to all joint financial accounts. Credit cards, checking, even our cloud-linked budgeting app. I also locked down my portion of our shared storage unit, changing the code, moving my documents, and installing a $40 camera in the corner that backed up automatically to my phone. I wasn't going to let her rewrite this. I also contacted a cybersecurity expert I knew through work. Told him I needed help analyzing an old MacBook for potential deletion logs or file wipes. He agreed discreetly and pulled the device the next day. I wanted a full forensic copy, because if Nora tried to claim I planted evidence or tampered with anything, I needed to prove otherwise. I wasn't acting from bitterness. I was acting from certainty, the kind that only comes when someone looks you in the eye, calls you paranoid, and then breaks into a garage to steal a folder you hadn't even mentioned out loud. This wasn't about catching her anymore. It was about staying ahead. I had evidence. I had backups. I had Nora's lies mapped out with surgical precision. But what I didn't have, what I hadn't fully decided yet, was what to do with it. I knew I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to the house. Not to the version of me that used to explain away red flags as miscommunications or bad luck. But I also wasn't interested in a scene. This wasn't going to be a viral blow-up at a restaurant or a screaming match on the front lawn. I wasn't going to play the part of the betrayed husband waving screensh *TS in a public meltdown. That wasn't who I was. Still, silence wasn't enough anymore. I needed her to know I knew, and I needed to regain control of the narrative quietly, strategically. If Nora and Logan had built their little fantasy on secrecy and spin, I was going to take that away from them, one move at a time. She texted me 3 days after the storage unit break-in. The message came at 8:46 a.m. Like she'd spent the early morning rehearsing her words. Nora, can we meet? Just to talk. I think we need to clear the air. There's no need to make this worse than it already is. She didn't mention the break-in. She didn't deny anything either. Just that bland corporate phrasing. Clear the air. Like this was a mismanaged calendar invite, not the collapse of our marriage. I didn't respond right away. I let a full day pass before replying. I'll meet. 1 hour. Camber and Vine. Tomorrow. 10:30. I chose the location for a reason. Camber and Vine was a sleek cafe attached to a gallery in the North Loop. Same neighborhood as the hotel where I found the original receipt. I wanted the space to feel familiar to her, like we were back in her world. But I also knew the layout well. One long center table, floor-to-ceiling windows, good visibility, no corners to whisper in. I arrived 10 minutes early. I brought a single envelope. Inside, printed versions of everything. Photos, receipts, timeline, copies of her messages. All labeled, all cross-referenced. I didn't include commentary, just the facts, laid out like a dossier. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked tired, hair pulled back too tightly, no earrings, wearing a muted blazer like she was headed to a quarterly review. She sat across from me and immediately launched into some half-smile, half-performance. "Jake," she began, "I know things have been messy, but I really believe we can talk this through like adults." I slid the envelope across the table before she could continue. She stared at it, lips slightly parted. She didn't reach for it right away, just rested her hands on either side, like it might burn her fingers. "What is this?" she asked, though she already knew. "Truth," I said, "with citations." She opened it, flipped through the pages quickly, her eyes scanning fast, then slower, then freezing on the hotel selfies, on the concert tickets, on the screensh *T with the phrase, "Come back to bed after you close that deal." Her face paled, not with shock but with realization. She hadn't expected this level of detail. Not from me. "You went through my accounts?" "I went through our shared history," I corrected. "It just so happens you left your footprints on every page." She closed the envelope and slid it back. "What are you going to do with this?" "Nothing illegal. Nothing dramatic. But I'm not going to be lied to in public while you rewrite what happened." She stared at me like I was a stranger. In a way, I guess I was. The man sitting across from her wasn't the husband she could gaslight into apologizing for checking the smart lock. He wasn't the guy who'd say sorry for noticing. She cleared her throat. "I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She shifted again. And Logan, he's not. He's not who you think he is. I tilted my head. You mean he's not the guy whispering compliments in a hotel room while you lie about being at Marla's? Because that's exactly who I think he is. Silence. Long tense. I assume, I continued, you'll want to inform your employer before someone else does. Her eyes darted up, sharp. What do you mean? Procurement records. Vendor approvals. I've submitted a compliance inquiry. I left names out, but you should probably prepare for that follow-up. Now she looked rattled. Not devastated. Not heartbroken, but exposed. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about reputation, career. The mask she wore so perfectly, the curated version of herself that never cracked, had been pierced. I stood up. This is the last conversation we'll have like this. Anything else goes through my attorney. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, maybe even beg, but the words didn't come. I walked out, leaving the envelope behind. The next day, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short. A clipped male voice. You made your point. Don't push this further. Logan. He hadn't reached out directly before. I guess the envelope rattled him more than I expected. I didn't respond. Instead, I added the audio file to my archive and forwarded a copy to Clara. And then came the unexpected gift. The hotel employee. An anonymous message hit my burner email 3 days later. It came from a Proton Mail account and included 2 files. A partial guest log and a security system timestamp index from the Camberley Hotel. The name Logan Pierce appeared multiple times, alongside Nora's. Same rooms. Same days I documented in my timeline. The message read simply, I thought you deserved to know. People like them think no one's watching. I didn't know who sent it. I still don't. But it was enough to confirm what I had already suspected, that their entire relationship had unfolded in plain sight, under the assumption that no one would ever dare look too closely. That was their mistake. They assumed I wouldn't look. They forgot what happens when someone quiet decides they're done being reasonable.